Well, welcome all. As I was just saying, in this day of unity, in honor of Martin Luther King, whose message was, "We are one, peace through unity," we're going to work with that energetics this evening. What does that mean today? What has changed since he spoke those words? What more has to be done? What can we all do individually? We're all going to work with that tonight. How does that feel, folks?
Much needed.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels very important. I feel that, we had certain sort of unifying presences like that, and, it's much needed today, so more than now than ever.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to make mention of something because my sister is on the call tonight, and she knows who she is. Linda and she has come and assisted at different events that we've had. And there's been any number of people who come to the table and they'll look at her and they'll look at me and they'll say, "Are you two sisters?" Now, we both grin because I'm going to tell you something here. For those of you who have not met either of us, she is a Black American and I am not. And yet people see us for who and what we are. They can see us beyond the outer, okay. I guess the universe is saying it agrees. But any number of people have said that. Those see beyond the outer surface and look at her and look at me and ask us that, and they are being very sincere. How many times has that happened, Linda? Any number.
It's been numerous times. More than once or twice.
Absolutely.
Yes. Several times.
And what Linda and I both know, it's true. It is true indeed. And people sense that and they see that. So this is what unity means, is going beyond the outside, going beyond the surface. Because that's where the stories are written. That's where the beliefs are given. And that's what engenders all the scripts that are written through those personal constructs. And then what happens? People come together in their little corner of the world, in their little corner. And if there's enough people around who are so hungry for personal power, they're able to get in there and get those people all roused up. And that's not what it's about. Never was. There have been songs throughout the years by different artists who speak of this, We are all one, The tapestry is of all colors, all textures, all everything. It's not made up of one more than the other. We are all equal. We are all important. Because we are all important because together we make all that can be so. Not one person can do it. Not one group can do it. Not one person can do it. Not one nation can do it. We have to do it together. How would it be to live in a time where people knew that as naturally as breathing? That boundaries that have become walls, lines of demarcation, are gone. There's no need to define a person by the outside or by what that person believes, what religion, creed, culture that person follows or comes from, but rather we are all knowing that what we do with and for each other and ourselves serves us all. How would that be, folks? Does that sound like a fictional fantasy that never could happen? Or could it?
It could.
I believe it will one day. I believe it will one day. I don't know if we'll be around to see it, but I think we'll come back to that.
Well, and this is why it's important, it's essential that everyone step away from what seems so very, very important in his or her own corner of the world. That is not to say to ignore it, no, because that doesn't help either. But rather, all that we do because it serves us all. And that when one is called, one steps in. There's no reasons that one can't or won't or any of that stuff. Just one does. How about that? You know, we already see evidence of that. You know, there are those that are called first responders, that when there's an emergency of some sort, these are the people that are the ones that first respond. So they're already doing it. See, so it's already here. It's already established. So that good work is already happening. But we have to take it higher. We have to take it higher. How would it be that many of the reasons why these emergencies happen just don't? Because the violence that was behind it doesn't exist anymore. How would that be? Is that, again, fiction? Is that, again, just a happily ever daydream wish? Or can it actually be?
Absolutely. It can be.
Can't hear who's ever speaking.
Oh, it can be, yes. I absolutely think it can be if enough people participate and realize it.
The reason why...
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. No, go ahead.
My take on it is that I think this is, you know, like whenever we're faced with disasters in our lives, that's when we forget about color or anything, and we all come together and become humble. And it's sad that we have to be brought to that level, but I think that's what's going to have to, that will help to shift.
Well, and that's when we're speaking about, does this have to be shockwaves to wake people up? Does it have to be that? Can it be that people realize, you know, when that happened, we all went to that person's house and we all took care of things, and it felt so wonderful. It felt so extraordinarily wonderful. Okay, let's keep that movement. Keep that energy moving. Right. And let's now take it out of having only that happen through emergencies or shockwaves. And let's take all the good works and take it higher so that the reflection, as above, so below, is so. So it isn't just done at the physical, it's done much higher. And even though those people are doing those things, at a higher level, they don't know it. A lot of them don't know it. A lot of it just, people do it because they know it's the thing to do. Yeah, it is the thing to do. Absolutely true. But let's take it higher. And taking it higher means becoming conscious. How would it be, folks, to live in a world where everyone is conscious?
just amazing.
Well, that seems like a very difficult goal at this moment in time, but, I think there's always going to be small groups that are going to be conscious and sort of recreating a new way of life rather than, maybe a whole civilization that does it. But I think it'll just be small groups at first, more so than anything. But
but look at what you're doing, Joseph. See, this is where we instead of just bringing that through, even in a thought form, that perpetuates what's always been.
Yeah, but
and that's part of what it means by going higher, by being fully conscious, to go beyond the old construct of the way we. Let me finish, please. Please let me finish. That when this is what is becoming, this is what we mean by going higher. That when something happens, that it doesn't have to always be a shockwave to get people to come together. And by shifting that kind of thinking, that, well, it's always going to be like that. That's what has perpetuated what's been happened. Is that's just why so much hasn't moved, because of that. So take it higher. And that's what means taking it higher does mean, is to go beyond, to look within oneself, and seeing, what am I myself doing or not doing to help this shift to happen? Am I perpetuating what has been rather than what can be? What am I doing? And this means consciously, actively participating with self so that moves. That's what that is. So this is what we say, is go beyond that. Go higher yourself. Every one of us has to do that. Every single one of us does. So what about that, folks? Any of you? What have you got to say about that?
Well, I would say that it seems like the sort of lower forms of that are kind of the sort of the presences that kind of are there to stir the pot almost and sort of rile people up and get them mad and angry and pissed off. But on another level to that, at a higher level, it's more just about creating, a coherence that people can see and feel and understand, and something that they can directly, energetically perceive and embody that sort of higher level of awareness, that sort of heightened awareness, to where they can see it in a different way, rather than going through just old ego defenses and angers and fears and projecting whatever at some sort of group or thing like that, because it's all within consciousness. It's not a physical thing. It's all going on at the energetic and within consciousness. So to blame others in regards to this and sort of project that onto whatever group is just unfounded. I don't agree with that.
Yes. Yet it does take each and every one of us to be aware of what we're doing within ourselves. Are we moving? Are we not? What's there? What isn't? Is there a thought of some things are just not going to change, or some things can and other things can't? What is the paradigm? It's taking it beyond the defensive lower self that weaves violence as a need for protection. So the question there is, what are you protecting? Who are you protecting? What is the need for defense? What is that about? Most times when people really ask themselves those questions, what am I defending? They usually find out nothing. What is the need for protection? What am I protecting? Who am I protecting? by that usually comes up with the same answer, nothing. And the need for that goes away. And that's the important thing, is that each of us look at that and see that. But what are each and every one of us holding on to so tightly that we won't let it go? And that can be just simply beliefs. That can be simply the looking at going beyond. What can we do about that? So this is what we are weaving. Weaving this new energetics, this evolution of all life, and at the same time removing those old strands that say that, well, and I'm going to give you this, is that, throughout the years, I've heard people say, well, people like yourself who are teachers, who are shamans, who are healers, all of you know how to do this. So we can just let you do it because you know how to do it. Well, doesn't that put a lot of weight on some of us? Doesn't that put the burden on just some? Yes. Yet that's kind of like going on a diet, one of those sad diets where it says, you take this pill or you eat this cookie or this whatever, and you're going to lose 150 pounds, but you don't have to stop your lifestyle. You don't have to make any changes in your life. Just take the pill and you're going to lose weight. Is that real? Does that really happen? No, it doesn't happen. It's not possible. So it goes with this, that we all have to do this. Each and every way that each person can do this, we have to do it. And it starts with each and every person being conscious. And those who are, to help others to wake up gently. Look beyond. Ask the questions, Well, I think, sometimes I think there's some other stuff going on. Well, you who are conscious say, yeah, well, talk about that. What do you feel? You see, what you're doing is you're helping that person to gently wake up. Do you see that, folks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like really seeing the seeds that are scattered around and nurturing them as they can stand it. You don't dump a bucket of water on a seed. You sprinkle it. You nurture it, tend it, and the seeds are everywhere. And in that way, you the strands and the web that's currently woven that's not serving can be dissipated.
Yes, exactly, because the people who are now waking up will begin to see that. Been feeding this thing so long, yet now I'm feeding this, and wow, look at how bright this is. Look at how full of life this is, how it tastes so good. This is what it means, being just in those ways. So how about that, folks? What do you know now that you can do? What do you know? What gift do you have? What can you do? Each and every one of you. What can you do to bring this unity? It was said some years ago, when there is peace in every person, there will be no more war between nations. How about that? How about that? It takes work, folks. This is not to say that we're all going to, tomorrow morning we're going to wake up and everything is going to be what we know that it can be. But what it does mean is that it's not left to just some, that each and every one of us has to participate in that. Each and every one of us does. Martin Luther King didn't expect that everybody was going to just go to his way of thinking. And yes, a lot of what he said and did spark a lot of reaction, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And what was the results of that, ultimately?
They killed him.
Well, it...
There was change.
Yes. Yeah.
So a change came about. A change came about. That's what happened.
And he was willing to do whatever it took for that to happen, even if it meant the giving of his own life. And he did that, didn't he?
Yes.
So, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? You know, this being a vessel, a conscious, actively participating vessel of light does require a commitment beyond any kind of commitment you have ever known. Because it goes beyond story. It goes beyond personal beliefs. It goes beyond what seems to be most important in your life. It steps well beyond that. It steps into knowing that you're willing to do whatever it takes to do whatever has to be done for however long it's going to take. Wherever it will take you, unconditionally you will step in. How about that? And not just because it's an emergency. Well, everything's going great in my life now. You know, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to cause any waves here because everything's going smooth. I just don't want to make anything changes here because everything's going well. What does that do, folks?
Well, it doesn't go anywhere, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Joseph, I'm going to ask you to mute the calls for a little bit because I'm going to read something that I was given to write a few years ago.
All right.
And some of you may have already read it or know of it. And if any of you would like a copy, that can always be sent to you. But it speaks directly to this. So it's going to just take a few minutes, but I will read this because I'm getting the push to do so. So tell me when we're ready, Joseph.
You go.
Okay. It's called Quintessence, Ancient Teachings. What is quintessence? The dictionary defines quintessence as the pure, highly concentrated essence of something. The purest or typical, simplest instance, the fifth essence. It is as close to being the only word I could find to describe what the energetics that are now here are. This is the evolution of all life. It moves at such a high speed that even those words do not begin to describe this. All that has been is ascending and transforming to the highest, deepest, most fine vibration that is beyond anything that has ever been before. When you understand that the energetic itself is the raw stuff of creation and all is energy, then perhaps you can begin to perceive what this is. All physical forms are the end result of what has come to be at the energetic. Remember that sentence, folks. All physical forms are the end result of what has come to be at the energetic. Without physical form, all is pure energy. That's why we are one. What we're all feeling and this is worldwide and beyond, is the shift of the energetic weight that has been for so very long laying on everything and everyone. That weight is beginning to lift, much like a heavy blanket that has lain on the ground for so long it just seems to be a natural part of it. So we can get caught up in the feeling of everything that is heavy in our own lives. Relationships or the lack of, money or the lack of, job or the lack of, etc. So we scurry about trying to alleviate that heaviness in our own personal corners of that blanket. That feeling of heaviness is the accumulation of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and agreements made by people throughout centuries. That is the weight that we're all feeling because that blanket is now lifting. You don't realize how heavy a thing is because you've carried it for so long. It feels like a natural part of you until you put it down. Then you realize it was what you agreed to carry, not you. We all have to lift this blanket off together. It is way more than any one person can do. It's made of threads woven into the energetic fabric throughout many centuries. By simply realizing that your thoughts and emotions, the beliefs and agreements you have made with life, does and will make all the difference in what will be woven into the energetic cloth itself. With each person's participation in this and not sourcing through the personal to do it, the foundation will be intact in ways that it was always meant to be. By looking to your corner of the blanket only, making that primary and first on your list of priorities, you add to that weight. Envision a very large cloth. It's got so much stuff laying on it. The weight has affected the very fibers of that cloth. Many of its fibers have become frayed and discolored. Many have broken. The very foundation of that cloth is not as intact as it once was. So when you look only to your own personal corner, effectively, you're dumping more weight on that cloth. This does not mean you should neglect or ignore what is going on in your own life. That doesn't help either. All this means is pay conscious, mindful attention to how you're thinking, what your emotions are, how you're dealing with everything. It's about making another choice. But this time, that choice can't be just about you and your life, what works for you and yours. That choice has to be way above those personal points of reference. This is a very large cloth, folks. It's been covering all of us for a very long time. We all have to grab on and lift it off together. There simply can't be you don't have the time or feel like it, you don't want to because you have to look to your own first, it's not convenient, any of the old tired excuses anymore. We simply don't have the time. The energetic wave of evolution of all life began rolling to the shores of the Kpacha, the energetic realm of the Pachamama in 1999, and even before that. We have seen its results as the years have passed. No one knows what that change will be or how it will happen. No one knows what the outcome of these events will be. What we do know is that the gatherings that began in 2010 continue and that a foundation was being set in 2012. This is what 2012 was about. It wasn't the peak. It was just the beginning. That's why we are all doing what we are with one single intent. The consciousness of all must be raised to the highest, purest energetics, no longer sourcing through the dense personal and physical only. So that foundation can be one of peace and compassion. Fear, anger, and personal have no part in this foundation of life and light. Time is of the essence now simply because there is no more time. If each and every one of us does this, all will evolve. Okay, let's move on. You can turn on the phones again.
All right. We're back.
Okay. Okay, folks. Because these calls, while it's being done through word, we are working energetically. What did you perceive? What did you sense? What did you feel even in your physical bodies as that was being read? Anybody?
I could feel the weight of the cloth as well as the lifting of the cloth. And what you were saying earlier, that it can't be just left to a small group of people to lift this cloth, really, became very obvious. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, yeah, I also, too, felt what she felt when she said she felt the cloth, the weight and what's going on sort of within it. But at the same time, I sort of feel like I don't feel a sense of worry about it. I feel like I don't think it really has to be hard. I feel like, I just know everything's going to work out for the best. And, I know whatever's there may not be easy, but, easy is not always good. And, it's hard to say what's good and what's bad because both really have such big impacts on a person's life that hard to say. It's all a learning process. And I feel like it doesn't have to be hard. It really doesn't. It's just a matter of physically doing it. It's like it's there. So, all right, let's go do it.
Yeah, that's it. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. No, there's no worry involved in that because that's all personal. If there's worry, then it's personal. Just simply the sense of the urgency, the sense of the intensity of what is in the energetics now. This is what we know.
Yeah, there's no real shutting it down. It just keeps on going.
Well, if you shut it down, I don't know what would happen. We might implode. I don't know.
I probably would explode. I know that much.
So we're not going to talk about that. Okay. Okay. Remove that thought immediately, please.
Clear.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. It's imperative, folks. Yeah. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Anybody who's ever been in a class with the teacher or the professor who's lecturing, it's kind of hard to keep the eyes open. The doodling on the pad and the, going everywhere else because it's become so heavy and dull that you just don't want to even be there. Well, no. That isn't this. This is feeling it, perceiving, know it, feel that energetic, feel this life, this pulsing vitality that's moving so rapidly, so swiftly, that's moving it and knowing that we who are conscious, we work this, we flow with it, and we don't just work it, we merge. We are one with it, and in that, through our pure intent of who and what we are, not personal, but because we are one, and knowing that intent together is what we're doing. How about that? What do you got of that? Yeah. Yeah. So we speak now, before when it was said, what happened, he was killed. Martin Luther King was killed. Why? Why was he killed?
he was such a threat to to the I guess the powers that want divisiveness and greed and for lack of a better word, the status quo.
He shone a light. He shone a light, and all the shadows, if that light continued to shine, wouldn't have any place to hide anymore. If more and more people stepped into that light that he was shining, those shadows couldn't have stood. They just couldn't have. But what about now? What about now? What can we do?
Well, I feel like it's inevitable sort of transgression. I feel like things are sort of moving towards that sort of towards the light, and the old guard is leaving. Whether I think that which is evil and corrupt basically contains of the seeds of its own self-destruction in it, so it's just going to take itself out anyway.
Well, yeah, but we have to go beyond that kind of thinking. It takes active participation. We cannot just sit back.
I wasn't implying that.
Okay. We all have to actively participate in bringing this into actual happenings. It's like saying, okay, I want to learn how to paint, so I'm going to read books on how to paint, but I've never picked up a brush. Well, you might have all the theories, but until you pick up that brush, you're never going to know how to paint. So we have to do this. Kathy, I know that you had participated when we worked with the energetic, and you know actively what happened as a result of that. If you'd be willing to speak a bit about about what the intent of this call, Peace Through Unity, what you've come to know by that active participation in that. What would you say about that?
That coming together and with pure intent as a group and shining the light, bringing the light to dark areas of the world had actual physical results in that part of the world, where we saw things happen in the days right after doing that had not seemed possible. So that focused intent actually has physical manifestation. It brings clearing the energetic has amazing physical results.
Mhm. Yeah, it's that real, folks. It's that actual. It's not just something that just simply sounds good. It's actually physically happening. In that gathering that Kathy was just speaking of, within 72 hours after that, Afghanistan let the Red Cross in for the first time in many years. There were changes in Lebanon, in places in the world which had long-time conflict, and it had changed. That's how real it is. And not because each and every one of us wanted it that way, but simply because we went with what the guidance in the flow of energetics, the sense of being intact and not being intact. By feeling that, sensing it, perceiving it, going with that. Not forcing, not coercing, not personally wanting to do anything to make a change. Nothing like that at all. It was well above that.
Right.
And this is
set out. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
We didn't set out with a specific goal of having the Red Cross go into Afghanistan. There was nothing like that. That's what, whatever was going to be would be. But it was the clearing and the bringing the light to the dark that made a difference, and we had no previous notions of how that would manifest.
That's right. That's exactly so. And even and with that came the sense of knowing when we were moving and traveling and going with that flow, when there was a sense of resistance, knowing the guidance of what to do or not do, and stepping in as guided and not to guide. Whatever it was that had to be or not be, this is what took place. And what's more is each and every one in the group knew what each and everyone else in the group knew.
Right.
So how about that, folks?
Well, yeah, from what I feel from that, it feels like sort of creating a space for that sort of coherence basically gives the opportunity for that to sort of flow freely in the world, and that's why you see those sort of things where it sort of opens up a space for what's there to really be itself, to let it out, whatever it is, and sort of clear the way for it, rather than, the heaviness, the confusion, the fog, the quarrels, the angers, the fears, the defenses, and all that, all that old stuff. But I feel like it's, in terms of like ceremonial work, I feel a lot of it's, sort of clearing the way, for lack of a better word, but yes.
This is what formal sacred ceremony does. This is what happens because a sacred container has been created for that exact reason. In everyday life, informal sacred ceremony, what does that mean? Change of thought, that's what it means. A change of feeling, paying attention to that. You're going along and then there's a feeling of something. Paying attention to that and following whatever that something is as you're guided to do. That's informal, but it still gets it done. So how about that? Any of you who actively work with this in your everyday lives, what do you know about this? How do you know? What have you come to know? How do you know, or I should say, what do you feel, what do you actively see happen as a result of you being more conscious?
Well, what I see is an expanded awareness I didn't have before, and, that sort of brings about sort of like with what I've been working on in the past and what I feel, it's sort of like, with what's been coming in the past years, it's almost, for me, it feels sort of like a new language and a new understanding developing in the world. And it's something that really needs to be brought in simple terms and presented in a way that others can directly perceive, feel, and begin to understand what's there, in a very clear way, in a very contained fashion. And, that's what I feel the work is, and that's what I feel a lot of the work I'm doing is about. And, that's what I feel right now.
Just keeping things simple. There doesn't have to be a big whole bunch about it. It's just simply knowing, following that guidance, and what you get, give what you get. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Pay attention to not if a feeling feels good or bad, right or wrong. Just simply take it out of that. This brings it higher. To take it through knowing, does something feel intact or not intact? That takes it well beyond the stories, the way things have been. It takes it well beyond that. It does take it higher. Because now you are perceiving the energetics. Yes, this feels intact. Well, it almost all does, but there's this piece, this not all the way, completely following like that, just like when we did in that gathering. Feeling it and moving, perceiving, moving. When something felt that wasn't intact, then we stopped and perceived and then moved in again. Always moving. Always moving, but not getting stuck just because something did not feel intact. See, that can happen. When something doesn't feel good, what do people want to do? Don't want to have anything to do with it. Or they're going to fight their way through it. Or some sort of construct that really doesn't work. Instead of that, stop, center, ground, perceive what it is, and keep moving. And in that way, you are weaving things back into an intact state. How about that, folks? What has this got to do with the intent of the call to creation call tonight, Peace Through Unity?
It's paying attention to what is not intact and moving through and keep moving through it, not to stop and get stuck in some pattern. And yeah, in everyday life and in the larger picture, in your interactions and just even in a daily life, the flow, to keep moving but to notice it and perceive when there is something that kind of goes to you, and not just make up a story about it or tuck it away. I won't pay attention to that, because then you really better pay attention.
Well, we know that the more resistance you feel, the faster go get done whatever it is you're resisting. And that clears it immediately.
It does.
When you're walking on quicksand and you start sinking, if you start flying around and all of that, you're going down real fast. But if you go still, the chances of you getting out of that quicksand is a whole lot better, because then you can observe what's around that can pull you out, that you can grab on to pull you out. So look to that. So the question I'm going to ask any of you, would any of you be willing to host me in sacred ceremony at your place or somewhere where you know to bring this and make it happen? And make it happen.
What would that require, Fran? Just a place or just?
It would require a place where we can work in sacred ceremony, where we're not going to be disturbed, and that because it's generally at least one overnight, just somewhere where I could stay and whoever else comes, even if there were local places they could stay at, including myself, to make it happen. Doing what we did in that gathering that you were at, Kathy.
Mm.
Just that. So consider that. Consider that.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into it and get back with you.
Well, you know, we could ask President Obama if he would like us to come to the White House.
He'd probably have more room, too.
Answer.
We would have room. I would say we probably have enough room.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'm fairly certain of that. And we'll go. And, you know, I have an idea that I'm going to have a whole lot of people wanting to be an apprentice for that one. I just have that idea. But, yes. How would it be, folks, to have sacred ceremony, sacred fire, work in despacho on the White House lawn?
Oh, wow.
They'd allow it, but yeah, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, they did have a garden this year, so that's a start.
There you are.
Yeah.
There you are. Yeah. And the thing is, people, I would do it. I would be delighted. I would go in a moment.
I would join you.
I'd go with you. I'd have to watch your back on that. You know what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Well, why do I feel there's a little personal hook in that one?
Well, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know. You're just going to look out for my welfare. I got you.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Maybe
okay.
you could write a letter and request it.
Yeah.
I'd be suspicious from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, we would just have to tell the White House security, look, he's my guard dog. It's okay. Just scratch him behind the ears. He'll be happy. Yeah. And you see, that's an important thing, too, folks. You know, the Q'ero, who are the pure blood descendants of the Inca, who we work with when we're in Peru very often. You know, we're in deep ceremony with them. You know, could be despacho, could be other ceremonies, but we're in deep, serious, sacred, formal ceremony. And they're laughing. They're carrying on. They're talking about all sorts of things. And they're just having a grand old time. Why do they do that? They do that because they know very much so that the seeds of laughter, of delight, lightens it all up and seeds the life and brings it to life, whatever we're doing. And it keeps any shadow, anything that's shadow and wanting to be heavy and resistance, it gives it no place to hold on to get stuck. That very delight is what keeps it moving. When we work in sacred ceremony, we do that too. And you who have been in sacred ceremony with us have seen that and know what it feels like and knows what happens because of that intent. And so when we say, you know, lighten up, play, feel good, be delightful, be joyous, be outrageous, but never lose your intent of why we're here. What that does is it opens up all that's happening to infinitely. because otherwise it can be so heavy it's never going to even begin to sprout life. So how in your life do things happen that seem so ponderously heavy, burdensome? And what are you yourself doing to not keep things moving? What happens when you don't keep things moving? And what happens when you finally step in and participate? Things move, don't they?
Yes.
Yep, everything takes off where it was the last time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So when you feel something that's heavy and a burden and all of that, and you feel that resistance, whatever it is you're resisting, run to it. Don't ignore the phone call. Don't ignore the letter. Don't ignore the people, the places, the things. Deal with it. And it clears it immediately. It gets things moving. Effectively, whenever it is that you make a choice, a conscious choice to not deal with something, it stops and everything starts building up. So see it as everything, what was just a little few pebbles is now going into boulders. And now you got a whole big wall you're going to have to take down to get through that. Where if in that moment you felt and saw and perceived that first pebble, you stepped in immediately to clear it out of the way, that wouldn't have happened. Anybody know anything about this in your lives that you'd like to share for other people to know?
I don't want to share it. I want to let it go.
Well, any of you have anything that... Yeah. Yeah. Because you see, by anyone sharing any of his or her own experience with this can help others to perhaps realize, shine in that light for that person to say, yeah, have been resisting that. But now just what she said or what he said, I can see where really I have to make that phone call or talk to that person or do whatever it was. So anybody have anything you'd like to share? Because you see, this is unity. This is helping each and all to have peace in the midst of chaos, in the midst of the winds of change. Everything moving so rapidly now, so swiftly that it's almost beyond comprehension. So this is unity.
Fran, I would like to share something. I know many times in my life when, for instance, like years ago when I was younger, and it was like I would hear where someone had threatened me, or I would hear like, oh, someone is going to do this to you and looking for you or whatever, and you better watch out. Every single time that I would go by myself and go and approach the person, because I'm not the type of person where I'm going to be, hiding and looking over my shoulder and all of that. Every single time that I went and faced them and confronted them, it never was a problem. They always, and I never came like, being like loud and crazy, like, like wanting to, to trying to attack them. I just like, okay, here I am. You're looking for me, and each and every time they always back down.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever was the problem, it was no longer a problem anymore for some reason. And the reason was because I came and I looked them in the eye and I confronted them like, okay, let's resolve this. Mm-hmm. And it was no issue. It was like it was never an issue in the first place.
There you go. What do you know, Linda, about what it is what brought that so?
What brought it so?
No problem. Yeah, that made it no problem.
It's because I faced it. I didn't run from it. I wasn't fearful of it. I was bold as a lion, and I was like, okay, this is what's being said. Let me resolve this now.
Yes.
And because each and every time I did, it was amazing. Even one time, like with a boss I had, and when I lived in Miami, and he was like, when I first laid eyes on him, when I looked into his eyes and we locked, looked at each other, I said, oh, I felt his spirit. I'm like, oh, he's going to be a problem. I could see it in his eyes. Mm-hmm. And he became a problem to everyone. Everyone. He was not nice at all. And to the point where I wasn't concerned about myself because I knew that I could handle it. But I watched him belittle so many of the other employees. It was so hurtful to me, seeing him the way that he was treating the other people, to where one time it came to a point where he was going to lay so many people off in the Christmas time. And I wasn't concerned about me being laid off because, but what he did, he put everybody's name, he created a list. And if you went to work the next day and your name was on the list, that meant that you would no longer be working there.
Okay.
And and people were afraid and fearful. And so I said, well, if my name is on the list, then I'm not going to mind. I just won't come back. No big deal. But the people, my name was not on the list. But when I came, I couldn't be there that day because the pain was going to be too great for me, for the other people that couldn't handle it.
Okay.
So what I did, when I found out, I was told, because I was studying the Course in Miracles at the time, to pray for him. And by praying for him, that just taste I had for him and the way he was, I watched him change right before my eyes. And one day before he actually changed, he, was a rule that he had, and if you didn't go by it, then you were supposed to get a fine or whatever. Well, I was supposed to get a fine, but instead I was sent home.
Okay.
And I was told not to confront him, and I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't what he said. So, and I was told, no, by the manager, don't say anything to him. I went to him, and I said, so what's the problem? You said if this, or that happened, then this is what was going to happen. So why am I being sent home? And he just looked at me, and he said, well, since you confronted me and since you put it that way, you can work. Because I told him, I'm out of town. I'm not a doctor. I'm not talking about go home and be on call. Okay. And so he gave in.
Well, you see, you became visible in the light. And when a person when the light has been made visible, it simply is. It cannot be not seen. It is.
Right.
It is what it is, and that's what you were, and that's what you brought.
Right.
And in being that vessel of light, there was no fear. There was no stories. It simply was being the vessel of light and bringing forth what it is that you know.
Right.
So you see, thanks, Linda, for that, because you see, this is peace through unity. It didn't only serve Linda, it served others, and it served the person who was bringing forth that kind of a violence, because violence by any other name, but it was. So you see, that's what peace through unity means, is that each and every one of us stepping up to do whatever it means to take, to get things done, and taking it beyond just that, because people are doing that. But that's where we must take those good works and take it to the higher level. So before I know that what may help you to truly see this is if we take a bit of a journey here and see the good works that are being done today. And perhaps it is that you can see how what we are doing by raising this energy, raising the vibrations that have been to the fine, high, deep, energetic vibrations that have come, are here, and continue to come, perhaps you can see, then perceive what it is that we must do to bring this higher, to bring it in, to bring it up. So I'm going to ask you to mute the calls, Joseph.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. And I'm going to ask each and every one of you to center and ground, be still. Center and ground, be still. So, Psyche, all you who are the sacred ones of light, sacred guardians of light, sacred angels of light, sacred archangels of light, the sacred warriors of light, the sacred protectors of light, the sacred mountains of light themselves, we ask you to help us see, Pachamama, show us the good works that are being done today and that have been done and are being done even now. These good works. We see that they are solid and good, and they do raise good, pure energy. And we do see how strong they are. In all the corners of the world where these are being done. Seeing how they weave together, how it does serve and fill the K-Pacha, the energetic grid, the energetic rivers that flow through and with the Pachamama. How it does feed them and does help to keep things moving. Looking higher now, see the tendrils moving higher, higher, weaving, moving higher these strands, not yet moving high enough to weave together in one. Yet they are there, and they are full of life, and they are pulsing, and they are vital, and they are moving. And we see this in their brightness. See now what it is that must be done so that all those strands become one. No longer separate, no longer coming from separate parts of the world, but merging, being truly the one that we are, knowing that each person, each life does and will continue to have free will. Yet the merging, the becoming one, because we already are, is much higher than ever any thought is needed. No thought needed. No thinking needed. Just simply the knowing, the perceiving, seeing this, knowing what in this moment, perceiving now what we must do, what must continue to be done. So this merging becomes. And with that knowing, perceiving what you now have, return now to your physical bodies in the current time and place where you are. Be fully here. Thanking the sacred ones of light, the sacred angels of light, the sacred archangels of light, sacred guardians of light, the sacred warriors of light, sacred protectors of light, the sacred mountains of light, all the sacred ones, the light itself for showing us this. Igniting the sparks within us to full flame so that we know what we must do as the vessels of light that we are, that we will step in to do whatever we are called to do, whenever, wherever, however, and for however long, wherever we will do it. Return now fully to your current body in the time and place that you are. Center and ground. Be here. Joseph, you can open the phone.
All right. We're back.
What'd you see, folks? What do you know now? Anyone? Anybody?
That the individually in groups around the world, different things are being done to help people physically help them, and each of those things sends up the tendril of light that is coming from that particular thing, and that going higher is the connection. That's the work that we do by being together in a higher energetic place, is to be the anchor for those threads that are coming up singly, so that it unites into a grand, beautiful, bright connection.
Yes. And anyone else? Yes, thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Well, I feel like almost what I'm getting is, it almost feels like what's happening on a higher level basically defines what happens with the unconscious.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed, yes.
Well, yeah, I've understood that point.
That's it.
However,
yes.
I just brought that up.
Yes, thank you.
Well, yeah.
How about the rest of you?
That makes it a lot easier, Fran.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple now.
Yes. You understand, Joseph, that I'm keeping a little list of all this, so that when we do step in the jungle, I'll have the list with me. You do understand that,
all right?
Right?
Well,
Okay.
I appreciate that. I like lists. It keeps me in the right sort of mind frame. I know what I need to do now. I have a list.
Yes. Remember you said that, my friend. Oh. How about the rest of you folks?
I felt like a mountain or something, some mountains, and then almost like orbs and fire. Just the idea of fire, not so much nothing on fire, but it's more like orbs that were like that I could see right through, and you could see the mountains behind them. So that was kind of interesting.
Mhm. This is all the energetics. Very well done. Okay. I know we've gone a little bit past, but that's okay. We're going to be completing. And I'm going to ask each and all of you to be even more consciously aware than you already are of what it is that you can do to raise this cone of light, this pillar of light. What can we do? So all the physical good works that are happening and that are helping people in many, many ways, how those good works can be raised to the higher sacred energetics, of the sacred, and the difference that will make. I'm going to ask all of you to be conscious of that and always know that I am willing to come to bring it to so that we can all be in formal sacred ceremony together. Know that. We will be having some special calls for the works that will be coming up in the spring and throughout the year. And perhaps you'll join us in those calls as well. But certainly, I am quite willing to come and would be honored to do so. So let us complete for this evening. So slightly hapun wilke awira kocha. Hapun wilke Pachamama. Hapun wilke inti daita. Hapun wilke mamikila. Hapun wilke apupunya. Hapun wilke punchai. Hapun wilke moonai. Hapun wilke conchai. We thank you, all the sacred ones of light, the sacred mountains, all the sacred ones of light, for being with us this evening, guiding us, helping us to see higher, well beyond our everyday personal, physical lives, and seeing that of all others, and giving us this extraordinary gift of seeing this pillar of light that all these threads are wrapping into, and what we must and can do to make it so. We thank you. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.